The grand ballroom of the Silver Star Hotel glimmered with opulence, its chandeliers casting a warm, inviting glow across the elegantly dressed guests. Lush floral arrangements adorned the tables, and the air was filled with the melodic strains of a string quartet. Among the guests was Victor Hargrove, a wealthy oil tycoon whose presence was marked by his tailored navy suit, crisp white shirt, and the subtle yet unmistakable scent of expensive cologne. He was known not just for his vast fortune but also for his extravagant lifestyle and keen sense of humor, which often bordered on audacious. Victor's eyes scanned the room, a playful glint in them, as he considered the evening's festivities. He had been invited to this wedding under the pretense of friendship but was eager to make the night memorable, perhaps even notorious. His gaze landed on a small figure by the entrance, Eliza, a restroom attendant dressed in a simple navy uniform. She was modestly built, her dark hair tied back in a neat bun, and her eyes darted around the room, wide with wonder and apprehension. What would it be like to experience the wealth and joy swirling around her in the ballroom? Victor mused, a mischievous smile creeping onto his lips. He approached her, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor, creating a sharp contrast to the soft murmurs of laughter and clinking glasses around them. "Good evening, my dear," he said, his voice smooth and inviting. Eliza looked up, startled, her cheeks flushing as she realized who stood before her. "What brings you to this corner of paradise?" I work here, sir," she stammered, trying to regain her composure. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, aware that she was in the presence of a man whose fortune could buy anything, even respectability. Victor chuckled, the sound warm and infectious. "And what a fine job you do, Eliza! But tonight, why not step into the limelight? I have an idea that could add a bit of sparkle to this dull affair." Her brow furrowed in confusion. What could he possibly want with her? Eliza had spent years in the shadows of wealth, scrubbing floors and cleaning toilets, but never had anyone invited her to be a part of something grand. "I would like to invite you as my guest for the evening," he announced, a twinkle in his eye. "Picture it, a wealthy oil tycoon and a restroom attendant, making the perfect couple for the night. Think of the stories that will be told." Eliza's heart raced. This was absurd, and yet it was tempting. Would she really want to stand beside someone like him, surrounded by the upper crust of society? Yet a part of her yearned for the experience. She hesitated, feeling the weight of her current reality tugging at her. "Mr. Hargrove, I don't think," she began, but Victor interrupted her. "Nonsense! Life is too short for hesitation. Let's make some memories. After all, who says a restroom attendant can't dance with the elite?" His grin was disarming, and she could see the genuine excitement in his eyes. Eliza bit her lip, the thought swirling in her mind like a whirlwind. Could she really do this? A million thoughts raced through her head, the disapproval of her colleagues, the laughter of her friends, but she couldn't shake off the feeling of adventure that whispered in her heart. "All right, I'll do it," she finally said, her voice trembling slightly. Victor clapped his hands together, beaming with delight. "Excellent! I promise you, this will be a night to remember." As they walked into the ballroom together, Eliza felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and dread. She noticed the curious glances from the guests, their whispers rippling through the air like waves. What would they think of her? A restroom cleaner mingling with the rich? The weight of their judgment felt heavy on her shoulders, but Victor seemed oblivious to it all, his confidence radiating like a beacon. He led her to the center of the room, where the guests danced with abandon. "Let's start with a dance," he announced, pulling her close, his hand resting gently on her back. She felt the warmth of his body against hers, a stark contrast to the chill of her apprehension. The music swelled, and Victor twirled her across the floor, his movements smooth and practiced. Eliza stumbled at first, unaccustomed to such attention, but with each step she found her rhythm. Laughter erupted around them, and she caught sight of the smirks and surprised expressions from the guests. "I can't believe I'm here, dancing with an oil tycoon," she thought, her heart pounding in time with the music. As they spun and twirled, the world around her faded, and for a moment she felt free, like a princess in a fairy tale. But just as quickly, the laughter from the crowd returned her to reality. They're laughing at me. The thought crept in, prickling her skin. Victor noticed her sudden change in demeanor and leaned in closer, whispering, "Don't mind them, Eliza. They don't understand the joy of living in the moment." His breath was warm against her ear, and she felt her body relax slightly, reassured by his presence. As the song ended, they shared a moment of silence, their eyes locked. Victor's gaze was filled with admiration, while Eliza's was filled with a mixture of confusion and exhilaration. She could sense the unspoken connection between them, an understanding that transcended their social differences. But then, the spell broke as Victor's friends approached, clapping him on the back and chuckling. "Who is this delightful creature?" one of them asked, eyeing Eliza with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "She's my date for the evening," Victor declared proudly, his voice booming. Eliza's heart sank, the weight of their judgment heavy on her. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and a sense of embarrassment washed over her. "Why did I think I could belong here?" The laughter grew louder, the subtext sharp and cutting. It felt like a spotlight shining down on her, exposing her for all her insecurities. She turned to Victor, searching for reassurance, but his expression had shifted, too, his eyes now narrowing in frustration at the mocking comments of his friends. "Victor, I should go," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the din of the crowd. "No, you'll stay," he replied, the determination in his voice evident. But Eliza could see the tension in his jaw, the way his body had stiffened. She realized then that their shared moment was fragile, teetering on the edge of judgment and ridicule. As the night wore on, Eliza found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The laughter continued to echo around her, each sound a reminder of the chasm between her world and Victor's. Could this evening ever be anything more than a fleeting moment of whimsy? In the heart of the opulence and luxury, she felt like an impostor, a mere figment of someone else's fantasy. And yet, as she danced with Victor, there was a flicker of something deeper, a chance to transcend her reality, to step into a life she had never imagined. But at what cost? As the evening continued, Victor led Eliza deeper into the festivities. The dance floor throbbed with energy, the laughter and chatter of well-to-do guests swirling around them. Yet amidst the gaiety, Eliza felt increasingly out of place, like a mismatched piece in a grand puzzle. Victor, oblivious to her inner turmoil, was consumed by the thrill of the night. He swept her into the rhythm of the crowd, his confident movements masking the underlying tension that crept in whenever he caught the disapproving glances of his peers. Is it too late to turn back? Eliza thought, feeling the weight of every scrutinizing gaze like an invisible cloak around her shoulders. Let's get a drink, Victor suggested, his eyes sparkling as he guided her toward the bar, where glistening bottles lined the shelves like soldiers in formation. The bartender, polished and professional, greeted them with a nod, swiftly pouring 2 crystal glasses of champagne. The bubbles danced within the glass, catching the light and reflecting the vibrant atmosphere. Eliza took the drink, her fingers brushing against Victor's, the brief contact sending a shiver up her spine. Why am I so affected by this moment? She thought, but the feeling of warmth spread through her, comforting yet alarming. She sipped cautiously, the bubbly liquid fizzing against her tongue, invigorating yet foreign. To new experiences, Victor declared, raising his glass in a toast. May they always be unexpected. To new experiences, she echoed, though her heart was heavy with uncertainty. She stole a glance at the crowd, their laughter echoing like a haunting melody. Will they always see me as the restroom attendant? Victor followed her gaze and frowned. Ignore them, Eliza. Tonight is about us. His tone was firm, but there was an underlying plea, one that sought to bridge the gap between their worlds. Eliza nodded, trying to shake off the negativity swirling in her mind. You're right. I just never thought I would be here, in a place like this. And why not? He asked, leaning closer, their eyes locking in a moment that felt electric. You deserve to experience life outside of the restroom. You are more than your job, Eliza. Her heart swelled at his words, but doubts still lingered. Does he really mean it? As if sensing her hesitance, Victor placed a hand gently on her shoulder, the warmth radiating through the fabric of her uniform. "Let's dance again," he said, pulling her back toward the floor. The music shifted to a slower tempo, and Victor's grip on her waist tightened as he led her into the soft rhythm. The world around them faded once more, the other guests blurring into a haze of color and sound. Eliza felt herself melting into the moment, surrendering to the comfort of his presence. Yet just as she began to lose herself in the intimacy of their dance, a familiar face broke through the crowd. Marissa, Victor's longtime friend and socialite, glided toward them like a shimmering apparition. Clad in a form-fitting emerald gown, she exuded confidence and elegance, her dark curls framing her face perfectly. "Victor!" she exclaimed, her voice dripping with honeyed surprise. "I see you've found a new plaything for the evening." Her gaze fell upon Eliza, a flicker of contempt flashing in her eyes. Eliza's stomach twisted in knots. "Plaything?" The word struck her like a slap. She shifted uncomfortably, feeling exposed as the attention of the crowd swirled back toward her, eyes widening in intrigue and judgment. Victor's demeanor hardened, and Eliza could sense the tension in his body as he stepped protectively in front of her. "That's not funny, Marissa," he snapped, his voice low and firm. Marissa waved her hand dismissively, her laughter echoing like shards of glass. "Oh, come now! I'm just curious about the lovely lady you've decided to bring to our little soiree." She leaned closer to Eliza, her expression dripping with faux charm. "What do you do, dear? Clean toilets for a living?" Eliza felt the heat rise in her cheeks, the familiar sting of shame washing over her. "This is what I feared. This is who they think I am." She fought to maintain her composure, her hands trembling slightly around her glass. "I do what I need to do," she replied, her voice steady, though the words felt heavy on her tongue. Victor stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "She's more than that, Marissa. You should learn to respect people regardless of their profession." "Oh, please," Marissa scoffed, the edge in her voice unmistakable. "You don't expect us to believe she's on your level, do you?" Her gaze flitted back to Eliza, an assessing look that made Eliza shrink inwardly. Victor's patience wore thin, and Eliza sensed the crackling tension between them. "I invited her for a reason. She deserves to be treated with dignity, just like everyone else here." Marissa's smile faltered for just a moment, then returned with an even sharper edge. "If you say so, Victor, but I'd hate to see you regret your decisions." With a dramatic toss of her hair, she turned on her heel and sauntered away, her laughter trailing behind her like a phantom. Eliza exhaled a shaky breath, the heat of embarrassment radiating through her. "I'm sorry," she whispered, unable to look Victor in the eye. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." Victor's expression softened, and he gently tilted her chin up to meet his gaze. "You didn't cause trouble. Marissa is just Marissa. She thrives on belittling others to make herself feel important." "But she's right," Eliza replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am just a restroom cleaner. I don't belong here." His grip on her chin tightened slightly, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her heart race. "You do belong here, Eliza. You are worth just as much as anyone in this room." "Why does he care?" The question burned in her mind, but she couldn't voice it. Instead, she felt a swell of gratitude, mingled with confusion. "Thank you, Victor," she finally managed, her heart fluttering in her chest. He smiled, the warmth returning to his expression. "Now, let's put this behind us and enjoy the night. After all, I brought you here for a reason." As they resumed their place on the dance floor, Eliza felt the weight of the judgmental gazes lingering, but Victor's presence was like a shield, protecting her from the harshness of reality. The music swelled around them, enveloping them in a cocoon of rhythm and sound. Eliza closed her eyes, allowing herself to be swept away once more, the pulse of the music synchronizing with the beat of her heart. For tonight she could be someone else, someone worthy of a grander stage. As the dance drew to a close, a sense of liberation washed over her. She opened her eyes, and for a brief moment she could almost believe that she belonged to this world of wealth and laughter. But as the final notes faded, reality settled back in, tugging at the edges of her mind. With Victor still at her side, she felt empowered, but the shadow of doubt lurked, reminding her of her place. Could she truly step out of the shadows and into the light? As the evening progressed, the atmosphere shifted. The initial thrill of the dance faded, replaced by an undercurrent of tension that lingered like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Eliza found herself withdrawing, her thoughts swirling like autumn leaves caught in a tempest. Each laugh that erupted from nearby tables felt like a reminder of her perceived inferiority, and she could almost hear Marissa's cruel words echoing in her mind. "Why do I let them get to me?" she pondered, clutching her glass of champagne as if it were a lifeline. "Am I really just a restroom attendant?" Victor remained by her side, his presence a comforting balm against the sting of rejection. Yet even he could not shield her from the reality of her surroundings. The party continued in its glamorous rhythm, the laughter growing louder, the clinking of glasses a constant backdrop. It was a world she had always admired from afar but had never truly been part of. "Let's go outside for a moment," Victor suggested, sensing her unease. His eyes held a softness that made her heart flutter, a gentle invitation that promised escape from the overwhelming din. Eliza nodded, grateful for the reprieve. As they stepped outside onto the balcony, the cool night air enveloped them like a soothing blanket. The stars sparkled overhead, a celestial tapestry that seemed to echo the tumultuous emotions swirling within her. "Better?" Victor asked, leaning against the railing, the moonlight casting a silver glow over his features. "Much," she replied, inhaling deeply, allowing the crispness of the air to clear her mind. I don't understand why I'm here, Victor. I don't fit in with any of this." He turned to face her, his expression serious. "You fit in more than you think. You have a perspective on life that many people here wouldn't understand. You've worked hard to be where you are." Eliza met his gaze, her heart pounding in her chest. "But they see me as beneath them. They only see my job." "Then let them see you differently," he replied, his voice steady, a beacon of unwavering support. "You are not defined by what you do. You are defined by who you are. And who you are is incredible." "Incredible?" The word echoed in her mind, a hesitant whisper. She wanted to believe him but couldn't shake the feeling of being an imposter in a world that would never accept her. "I don't want to be a burden," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're a successful businessman. You could be with anyone here. Why choose me?" Victor stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking, and she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "Because I see you, Eliza. Not just the restroom attendant, but the person who smiles despite her struggles, who stands up for herself when others try to belittle her." His words settled around her like a warm embrace, igniting a flicker of hope within her. But with that flicker came a wave of vulnerability. "What if I let him down?" "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice trembling. "What if I'm not enough?" Victor reached out, gently brushing a stray hair behind her ear, the softness of his touch sending shivers down her spine. "You are more than enough," he assured her, his gaze unwavering. "You just need to believe it." Eliza felt her breath hitch at the intimacy of the moment, the way his eyes bore into hers, searching for something deeper. The world around them faded into the background, the noise of the party dimming into a distant hum. Could this be real? Could she let herself be vulnerable? But just as she was about to lean closer, the sliding door to the balcony swung open, and Marissa stepped out, her presence an unwelcome interruption. "Victor, there you are!" she exclaimed, feigning a cheerfulness that felt hollow. "I was wondering where you'd run off to. The party is still in full swing." Eliza's heart sank, the warmth between her and Victor evaporating in an instant. She stepped back, suddenly acutely aware of her appearance, the plainness of her dress compared to Marissa's exquisite gown. What must Victor think? Marissa's eyes flicked between them, a smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. "I didn't realize you were the type to sneak away with the help," she quipped, her voice dripping with condescension. "Careful, Victor. You might find her scrubbing the floor instead of dancing with you." Eliza felt a flush of heat rise in her cheeks, the sting of humiliation coursing through her veins. She took a step back, unwilling to allow Marissa's words to penetrate her resolve. "Enough, Marissa!" Victor snapped, stepping forward, his demeanor suddenly fierce. "You don't have to belittle someone to make yourself feel better. It's disgusting." Marissa raised an eyebrow, her demeanor unbothered. "Oh, come on. I'm just trying to lighten the mood." "There's nothing light about it," he retorted, his voice low and intense. "You should know better than to speak to people like that." Eliza stood there, caught between the two of them, her heart pounding. Why does he care so much? She wanted to cry out for him to stop defending her, to take a step back and let her handle the confrontation. "Victor, you're being dramatic," Marissa said, her voice smooth yet edged with annoyance. "You always do this, trying to play the knight in shining armor. But honestly, it's pathetic." Victor clenched his jaw, his expression hardening. "And it's pathetic that you can't see how your words hurt people. Maybe if you took a moment to look beyond yourself, you'd realize that kindness goes a long way." Eliza felt her heart swell with gratitude. Despite the chaos of the moment, she was thankful for Victor's support. But she also felt a deep sense of discomfort at being the center of their conflict. "This isn't how I want to be seen." Marissa shrugged, her nonchalance only intensifying the tension. "Whatever, Victor. You do you. Just remember, when you decide to throw yourself into the arms of a nobody, it's your reputation on the line." With that, she turned on her heel and strode back inside, leaving an unsettling silence in her wake. Eliza stood frozen, the weight of the moment heavy in the air. "I'm so sorry, Victor," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to cause a scene." He looked at her, the intensity of his gaze unwavering. "You didn't cause anything. Marissa is just a bully, and she'll always find a way to make herself feel superior. But you're risking your reputation for me," she murmured, the weight of her insecurities flooding back. "What if it hurts you in the long run?" He stepped closer again, a fierce determination lighting up his eyes. "I'd rather defend you than stand by while someone disrespects you. You deserve respect, Eliza." His words reverberated through her, stirring emotions she had buried deep within. Could she really embrace this new reality? In that moment, the stars above seemed to shine brighter, their brilliance reflecting the possibilities ahead. "Thank you, Victor," she said, her voice steadier now. "It means more to me than you know." He smiled, and the tension that had built between them dissipated, replaced by a warmth that wrapped around them like a protective cocoon. "No," he said, breaking the silence. "How about we get back inside and show Marissa that we won't be intimidated?" With her heart racing and a renewed sense of determination, Eliza nodded. Tonight she would not let fear define her. Together they would face whatever came next, ready to confront the world beyond the balcony. Eliza stepped back inside, heart racing as the vibrant energy of the party washed over her again. The cacophony of laughter, music, and clinking glasses enveloped her, a stark contrast to the intimate moment she had just shared with Victor. She could feel the eyes of the guests on her, their judgments like invisible daggers, piercing through her carefully constructed facade. Victor moved close beside her, offering a protective presence that bolstered her courage. "Just be yourself," he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "You're stronger than you think." Eliza nodded, trying to push aside the lingering tension that Marissa's words had left behind. The challenge now was to embrace her individuality amidst the crowd, to navigate the complex dance of social interactions that had often felt beyond her reach. As they wove through the guests, Eliza's heart raced with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. The music pulsed, vibrant and lively, beckoning her to join in the revelry. Victor held her gaze, and she felt an unspoken understanding pass between them, a shared determination to rise above the whispers and sneers that had haunted her. "Let's get a drink," he suggested, guiding her toward the bar area. The bartender was a flurry of motion, expertly mixing colorful cocktails that sparkled like jewels. Eliza watched in awe, feeling a sense of wonderment at the extravagance surrounding her. Why had she ever doubted she belonged here? They reached the bar, and Victor ordered a couple of cocktails. As he spoke to the bartender, Eliza stole a glance around the room. Her eyes landed on Marissa, who was surrounded by a group of admirers, her laughter a sharp contrast to the disdain she had shown earlier. How can she be so two-faced? Eliza thought, feeling a surge of defiance rising within her. The bartender slid 2 cocktails across the counter, their vibrant colors gleaming like tiny works of art. Victor handed her one, the cool glass fitting perfectly in her hand. "To us," he said, raising his glass with a confident smile. "To us," she echoed, feeling a spark of joy ignite within her. They clinked their glasses together, and she took a sip, the sweet and tangy flavors dancing on her tongue. It was exhilarating, a reminder of the joy that existed beyond the judgment of others. "Let's dance," Victor said suddenly, a playful grin on his face. Eliza hesitated for a moment, the thought of stepping onto the dance floor amidst the elegantly dressed guests filling her with trepidation. What if I embarrass myself? But Victor's hand reached out, fingers brushing against hers, and she felt an irresistible pull toward him. "Come on, it'll be fun. Just let go," he urged, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Taking a deep breath, Eliza nodded. "Okay, let's do it." They moved to the dance floor, where the music thumped energetically, enveloping them in a whirlwind of sound. As they stepped onto the polished wood, Eliza felt the eyes of the crowd upon them, 1,000 whispers echoing in her mind. But with Victor beside her, the worries began to fade. He led her into a simple sway at first, his movements smooth and assured. Eliza followed his lead, her body relaxing into the rhythm of the music. She felt free, unburdened by the judgmental gazes that had once made her shrink into herself. "See? You've got this," he said, his voice close to her ear as he guided her to the beat. With each passing moment, she felt herself letting go of her insecurities, surrendering to the music and the warmth of Victor's presence. They moved together, their bodies finding a natural harmony. Eliza's laughter mingled with the melody, the joy of the moment coursing through her veins. But just as she began to truly enjoy herself, Marissa reappeared at the edge of the dance floor, her expression one of disdain. "Look at you, Eliza!" she called out, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Isn't it adorable that you think you belong here? Just remember, the cleaning staff always stays behind the scenes." Eliza felt her stomach drop, the biting words cutting through the happiness she had been building. "Why can't she just leave me alone?" Victor's grip tightened around her waist, his presence a shield against Marissa's taunts. "Why do you even bother?" he shouted back, his voice firm and unwavering. "Can't you see how small you sound?" Marissa raised an eyebrow, her smirk widening. "Oh, please. I'm just trying to save her from further embarrassment. No one wants a nobody in their spotlight." Eliza's heart raced, a mix of anger and embarrassment flooding her. "I am not a nobody." She glanced up at Victor, and the determination in his eyes gave her the courage to speak. "Actually, I'm not ashamed of who I am," she replied, her voice steady despite the flutter of anxiety in her chest. "I work hard for what I have, and I'm proud of it." Marissa laughed, a high-pitched sound that echoed in the air. "Proud? Of what? Scrubbing toilets?" Victor stepped forward, his expression fierce. "Leave her alone, Marissa. She's more than you'll ever be." Eliza felt a swell of gratitude toward him, but the moment felt precarious, teetering on the edge of chaos. "You don't have to defend me," she insisted, her voice breaking slightly. "I can handle this." "Can you?" Marissa challenged, stepping closer, a predatory glint in her eyes. "I think it's cute that you're trying to fit in, but you'll always be out of your league." A wave of anger surged within Eliza, fierce and unrelenting. "No more." She took a step forward, her heart pounding with resolve. "You know what, Marissa? You can keep your judgment. I won't let your words define me anymore." The room fell silent, a tension settling over the crowd as they turned to witness the confrontation. Eliza could feel their eyes on her, but this time she stood tall, her head held high. Victor's expression shifted from concern to admiration, his gaze locked onto her with unwavering support. "That's right, Eliza," he encouraged, pride evident in his tone. "You deserve to be here, And no one can take that away from you. Marissa recoiled slightly, her expression shifting from amusement to irritation. You think this little display makes you special? It's not about being special, Eliza replied, her voice steady. It's about being real. Something you wouldn't understand. With that, she turned her back on Marissa, taking Victor's hand firmly in hers. Let's dance, she said, a fierce determination igniting within her. They stepped back into the rhythm of the music, Eliza's heart pounding with adrenaline. She had faced the darkness of self-doubt and emerged stronger, her confidence blossoming like a flower breaking through the cracks of concrete. As they swayed together, the music pulsing around them, Eliza felt a sense of liberation. Each movement was a declaration of her strength, a reminder that she would no longer be defined by the opinions of others. Victor's smile widened as they danced, his eyes sparkling with pride. You were incredible, he said, breathless from the intensity of the moment. I knew you had it in you. Eliza beamed, her heart swelling with joy. Thank you for believing in me. I'm just tired of feeling small. You're anything but small, he replied, his voice filled with sincerity. You shine, Eliza. You just needed to find your light. As the music swelled, Eliza felt as if the entire world had melted away, leaving only the vibrant colors of the dance floor and the warm glow of the lights. Each sway and turn with Victor felt like a celebration of her resilience, her identity pulsating in sync with the rhythm. She had stood up to Marissa, and in doing so, had unveiled a part of herself she never knew existed, a confident, empowered version that had been buried beneath layers of insecurity and doubt. Victor held her gaze, his dark eyes shining with admiration, and she felt an electric connection between them, the kind that transcended words. Could this be more than just a dance? The thought flickered in her mind like a candle flame, fragile yet full of promise. Do you want to get some fresh air? He asked, his breath warm against her ear, breaking through her reverie. Eliza nodded, the exhilaration of the dance mingling with the desire for quiet reflection. They stepped away from the pulsating crowd, the music fading into a distant hum as they ventured out onto the balcony. The night air was crisp and refreshing, a stark contrast to the warmth of the ballroom. Eliza leaned against the balcony railing, her heart still racing from both the dance and the confrontation with Marissa. The stars twinkled above, a sea of distant lights that felt like they were winking down at her. Wow, look at that view, Victor said, leaning next to her, his shoulder brushing against hers. It's beautiful, she replied, taking a deep breath and savoring the moment. Almost as beautiful as this night. Victor chuckled softly, the sound sending ripples of warmth through her. You mean despite Marissa's best efforts to ruin it? Eliza smiled, the tension from earlier slowly melting away. I think she only made it more memorable. Exactly. You stood up for yourself, he said, his tone shifting from playful to earnest. That took a lot of courage. Eliza glanced sideways at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. He turned to face her, his expression serious yet kind. You were always worth believing in, Eliza. You just needed to see it for yourself. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the world around them faded entirely. Eliza felt her pulse quicken, a flutter of anticipation dancing in her chest. What if there was something more here? Victor, she began, her voice trembling slightly with the weight of her thoughts. Do you think people can really change? He tilted his head, contemplating her question. I think they can, especially when they realize their worth. You're a perfect example of that. Eliza's breath caught in her throat as she considered his words. The changes she felt within herself weren't just a reaction to Marissa's taunts, they were a testament to her growth. But what about Victor? Have you ever felt like you were stuck? She asked quietly, her gaze drifting to the stars. Like no matter how hard you try, you can't escape the expectations of others? Victor's expression turned contemplative, a shadow passing over his features. Yeah, I have. In my family, there's always been this pressure to succeed, to be perfect. It's suffocating sometimes. Eliza looked at him, intrigued. But you seem so confident. How do you manage it? Honestly? I've learned to take a step back and focus on what truly matters, what makes me happy. Sometimes, it's about breaking away from what everyone else expects and just living for yourself. His words resonated deeply within her, a reflection of her own journey. That's what I want to do, she said, her voice steadying. I want to live for me, not for anyone else's approval. Victor's eyes sparkled with understanding, a silent agreement passing between them. Then you're already on the right path, Eliza. As the silence enveloped them, the air thick with unspoken words and possibilities, Eliza felt a stirring of courage rising within her. Could she take the leap? Victor, can I ask you something? Anything, he replied, his gaze steady and unwavering. What do you see in me? The question hung in the air, heavy with vulnerability. His brow furrowed slightly, as if weighing his words carefully. I see someone who is brave, who has faced challenges head-on. I see someone who has a kind heart and a fierce spirit. You're not just a restroom attendant, you're so much more than that. Her breath caught again, the sincerity of his words washing over her like a wave. Thank you, she whispered, feeling warmth bloom in her chest. Victor took a step closer, his expression shifting, becoming more intimate. Eliza, I want you to know that I'm here for you. No matter what. Before she could respond, he reached out, gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The simple gesture sent a shiver down her spine, igniting a spark of longing within her. Was this moment more than friendship? Victor, But the sound of laughter from the ballroom interrupted her, pulling her attention momentarily. She glanced back toward the party, where the guests were enjoying themselves, oblivious to the tension and revelations taking place on the balcony. Let's go back in, Victor suggested, sensing her hesitation. The night's still young, and I want to celebrate your victory. Eliza nodded, though a part of her yearned to linger in this moment, to explore the possibilities of what lay between them. Could they navigate the complexities of their lives together? They re-entered the ballroom, and the lively atmosphere enveloped them once more. The music pulsed with energy, laughter echoing off the walls. Eliza felt a renewed sense of purpose surge within her, the earlier confrontation fading into the background as she focused on the night ahead. As they danced again, Victor's presence felt more reassuring than ever, a pillar of strength as she twirled beneath the shimmering lights. She was not just a restroom attendant, she was Eliza, confident, brave, and full of potential. The hours passed in a blur of laughter, dancing, and the joy of newfound acceptance. With each beat of the music, she felt the weight of expectation slip away, replaced by a sense of belonging that had once felt unattainable. As the night drew to a close, Eliza and Victor stepped outside once more, the cool night air refreshing against their flushed cheeks. Tonight was amazing, she said, her heart brimming with gratitude. Absolutely, he replied, his gaze warm and inviting. And it's only the beginning. Of what? She asked, tilting her head in curiosity. Of us, he said, his voice low and filled with promise. In that moment, Eliza knew she was ready to embrace whatever came next, ready to forge her own path alongside Victor. They stood together under the vast expanse of the night sky, the stars twinkling above like the dreams she had once been too afraid to chase. And with that, a new chapter began, a journey of self-discovery, resilience, and the promise of love that blossomed against all odds.